I thought I would share my story with you. I would love to hear my own story on your channel, but it is up to you, of course, if you find it interesting or not. I have followed your channel for a year, but I have watched all the previous stories as well. I have a 30-minute drive to work on Monday mornings. I always put on the Saturday edition on my phone. I just listen. I never watch the videos. I'm 54 now and I visited Thailand only once as a backpacker with my then wife when I was 22 years old in 1994, which was an interesting experience. Later, more about it to make this story worthy for your channel. I am happily married for the second time for 26 years now. We have 3 children and I have no intention to visit the Land of Smiles again except for maybe a family vacation. Let me enjoy the pleasures of the ladies in Pattaya or Bangkok. Then why do I follow your channel, you might wonder? For me, it is an escape, a fantasy world that I feel part of by listening to the stories. It is a bit like people who read and enjoy Lord of the Rings, the world of elves and dwarfs. One can dream away in this world just by listening to all the stories about relationships, but about the banking, insurance and healthcare. I feel like I'm part of the life and lifestyle in Thailand without actually being there. It might sound strange, but I hope it makes sense to you, and I want to emphasize that I really appreciate the effort you put into your YouTube channel. Your comments about people that get annoyed with your clothing or haircut make me laugh, and when I listen to the crashed relationships with bar girls, I think, my goodness, how do they manage? But then again, I would probably fall for the same traps, inexperienced as I am in those matters. Back to 1994, when I visited Thailand, I guess the world was more simple in those days, without internet, mobile phones. As a backpacker, I never knew where I was going to sleep the next day. We travelled around Thailand for 6 weeks. We visited Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, Mae Hong Son, the River Kwai, the island of Koh Samui and Bangkok. While on the island of Koh Samui, we stayed in a homestay that was run by a lovely old couple that kept insisting we should make babies because we were married. We had no intentions in that direction. Luckily, because a year later our marriage crashed. I guess we got married too young, being high school sweethearts. We also met a guy who was a retired diver who lived with a young lady. We thought she was his daughter because age-wise she could have been. But after listening to your stories, I realised she was his wife or girlfriend. We stayed in Koh Samui for a week and went every evening to a beach bar. On the second evening, we met a beautiful young lady that started hanging out with us. She was our age and we chatted about everything and nothing like youngsters do. On the third day or so, she told us she was a ladyboy. We were completely naive and had no idea what a ladyboy was. We only discovered this later when we got back home. I still have fond memories of her. Her name was Na. She took us around the island on a scooter and showed us around. In exchange, we bought her some drinks, shared meals, and we had a good time together. No funny stuff at all. She was such a warm and friendly person. Writing this story makes me think about her. She must be in her 50s now, but I never hear anything from you in your stories about older ladyboys. I wonder what happened to her. We finalised our backpacking adventures in Bangkok, and that is where things went a little crazy. We had some arguments about the ladies who gave me a lot of attention. I guess my then wife was a bit jealous. We didn't go to Patpong or any of the lady areas, but just random girls in stores and restaurants always wanted a photo with me and wanted to chat with me to try their English, and for some reason, never with my wife. It also didn't seem to bother them that I was hand in hand with my wife when they approached me. So one evening, my wife had a headache and she convinced me I should go out and hang out with some ladies. I was young and didn't understand women very well. Looking back on this was not a good idea, of course. I went out for a beer and met 2 girls in a bar. There were no ladies' drinks, just normal drinks. I bought them a beer which was very cheap, but they really seemed to enjoy this and were all over me. I told them I was married and my wife was in the hotel room, but they didn't worry about that. They told me for $100 I could take them both to a room in a nearby hotel for some drinks in a private room and have some fun together. That sounded like a good idea to me since my wife told me I could and she had a headache anyway, and so we did. Boy, that was an incredible experience. They were a little younger than me, I guess, but had much more experience in the aerobics department, if you know what I mean. How naive I was back then, haha. So a word of advice from the married listeners. What happens in Thailand stays in Thailand. I guess she never overcame this adventure, but because a year later we split up. A couple of years after that, I met my current wife, and as I mentioned in the beginning, we are happily married for 26 years, and I have never desired another lady. I wish you good luck in Thailand, Peter, and many years in health and happiness. The chances are rather small, but never say never. Maybe we will meet one day. Then I'll buy you a couple of beers and a dinner. Take care. Such a nice story there. First of all, thank you very much for your compliments. It's always appreciated when you get a few nice compliments as opposed to the trolls and the armchair critics. Just regards to your comment about why don't I read out stories about older ladyboys. If they're sent in, I can. I don't make up the stories, honestly, hand on heart. Every story I've ever read out on here has been sent in to me by a viewer. A viewer. And if somebody sends a story about a lady, I have read out ladyboy stories, but I can only read out what's sent in. So if you've got an older ladyboy story, send it in and I'll read it out. Just the last thing on this story, a lot of people get kind of annoyed when you talk about ladyboys and they're describing a ladyboy and she did this and she did this. I get critics who write and say, it's not a she, it's a man. We should be calling him a he, not a she. You know, people get their knickers in a twist, but I just think it's quite funny, really. Right, into our final story tonight. This is this morning, I should say. This is number 5, and this is quite a bit shorter. So if you remember last week, there were 2 stories about a guy who'd taken tuk-tuks in Bangkok. One was a good story and one was a bad story. And I said I'd read the other 2 out next week, which is this week. There was actually only one. He'd sent in 3 stories. So you heard the other 2 last week. This is the 3rd and last of his tuk-tuk stories, okay? Story number 3, The Ugly. One evening, I was out and about in Bangkok and finished up my evening near Soi 4 Nana. With some friends, I settled the account at the bar and realised I needed some money for a taxi home. Having enjoyed a number of drinks, I went to the nearby ATM to get some money. I took out a 10,000 baht. At this point, an eager taxi driver was watching me and offered his service. I jumped in the taxi and requested that he takes me to my hotel, Central Grand Central World. The driver took me this short distance, however, cleverly pulled up some distance short of my hotel and advised I needed to exit his taxi there, as he could then join the taxi rank nearby. Had he stopped at my hotel lobby, he would have had witnesses, hotel staff and security cameras. I had no issues with the 100-metre walk. I handed him the 1,000 baht as I had no change since the ATM only distributed 1,000 baht notes. I waited for my change. Suddenly, he looked at me and said, 200 baht. I said, yes, 200 baht. He said, you have to give me money. I said, what? I'm not hearing this correctly. He said, you have to give me money. WTF? Am I going crazy? I said, mate, I'm drunk, but I'm not stupid. I gave you the money already. No, he said, you don't give me any money. I pulled out my cash and counted exactly 9,000 baht. I said to him, I've just been to the ATM and withdrawn 10,000 baht. I gave you 1,000 baht. He said, no, you didn't. I said, drive me to the police station and we can talk this one out with the police. He said, no. What to do? I took a photograph of his ID, him and his car. I told him I didn't like it and I didn't appreciate what he was doing. He only opened his wallet and said, look, I only have 300 baht here. He said, if I took your money, you would see it here. I took the 300 baht out of his wallet and told him I was unimpressed with his treatment of me and exited the taxi. When I reflect on this story again, I'm 100% right. I had given him the money. Otherwise, why would he allow me to take the 300 baht out of his wallet or refuse to go to the police? And yeah, you know, honestly, guys, if you come here and you're a bit naive with Thailand, the worst place to kind of get scammed out of money is definitely taxis and tuk-tuks. Tuk-tuks, the latter, being the worst. They'll try every trick in the book to get, to scam you. So if you have to take a taxi, make sure he puts a meter on. There's no discussion. A lot of guys will say, oh, I went from point A to point B and I only paid 200 baht or I only paid 150 baht. There is no fixed price unless, well, not even for the airport. There is no fixed price. You know, it's always a meter. You might discuss a fixed price if you go from, say, Bangkok to Pattaya or Hua Hin. That's different. But generally speaking, even going to the airport, it's a metered price, you know. So if you get into a taxi and he gives you a price, just say no meter, and if he refuses, jump out. It's not like you won't find another taxi in Bangkok. There are literally thousands and thousands. And as far as tuk-tuk drivers go, I wouldn't even deal with them, you know, because they're just the biggest rip-off. It's quite fun to take a tuk-tuk ride through the city at night if you've never done it before, but just make sure you get all the details. You both agree on the same price, distance, and everything. Okay, right. Okay, that's it. Going on a little bit this week, as always. I'll end as I always do. If you're sitting on a story and you'd like to hear it read out here on Thailand Bound, send it in. I'll make it anonymous, and you two can have your story read out.